Iceland. Its very name suggests a kind of strength. Something about its Viking history, its inhospitable climate, and massive geothermal power has given the country an almost unparalleled reputation in the world's strongest man competition.
Come on, you can do it! Faster! Faster!
It might have a population of just 300,000 people, but amongst those are some of the strongest that have ever lived.
This small black volcanic rock is full of strongmen. Everywhere you look, there are tonk guys, manning checkout counters, driving taxis, selling fridges. It's an island of giants.
Isolation and adversity has fueled this tiny nation's strength, but also contributed to tragedy. We arrived in the heart of midwinter, when the average temperature is -15 and daylight rarely stretches beyond 4 hours. Our first destination was Jakobol, a notorious strongman gym that's name translates as Nest of the Giants.
By the looks of the place, it's got quite a sort of clandestine vibe going on. I can imagine you have to sort of knock 3 times. It's kind of Fight Club-esque.
Jakobol occupies a significant but sad place in the history of Icelandic strongmen. It was first opened by John Paul Sigmarsson, the ice blonde poster boy for the scene and the 4-time world's strongest man. However, upon his untimely death, the gym closed down, only to be reopened by his arch-rival and the other 4-time world's strongest man winner, Magnus Ver Magnusson.
On a personal level, Magnus Ver Magnusson is someone who I remember growing up, and it's quite weird to think that all these years later I would be in the middle of a Icelandic industrial state, hanging out with this man-beast himself.
Jakobol is not your average gym. It looks more like a construction site than a Pilates studio. There are no Zumba classes here, just steel, concrete and sweat.
So obviously, looking around Jakobol, these aren't the kind of things that you can go down and buy in your local sports shop.
A lot of the things I've developed. I know how to build things, I know how to work with metal and stuff like that. And so making aluminum blocks, for example, that was a whole thing, was my idea. Log lift, I built that myself. These cylinders as well. One thing here is done nowhere else in the world is what I call the mooring bit carry. You carry that like that as far as you can. It's so tough.
Yeah.
It's unreal. And all the boys hate it.
Are you quite hard on the boys?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. You gotta figure out a way to make them go to their limits without killing them.
Do you think maybe the idea of the strongman kind of had its day with guys like you and John Powell?
The sport has grown, but I'm still waiting for it to take that really big, leap. I used to love the car walk.
Yeah.
You get in it, it's like Fred Flintstone, and you walk off with the car, and it looks amazing. Make it live, do it differently. You know what I mean? What I would love to see is hey, throw a bunch of big, strong guys on an island and make them do Survivor and stuff like that. Show these guys they can do something else than just lift big things.
Big men lifting big things is the essence of the world's strongest man competition. In its 30-year history of thrills, spills, and ruptured ligaments, it's moved from being a politically incorrect pantomime to something more akin to a proper sport in recent years.
What's it made out of? Concrete?
Rubber.
Rubber? That's rubber! No padding or anything, it's just a steel bar.
That's a big no for a strongman. Don't use padding on anything.
How does, a 4-time world's strongest man reconcile getting weaker, losing mass and losing strength? How does that make you feel?
Well, I hate it. I really do. You look at something and you know, oh, I used to be lifting that, and it feels heavy today. You know what I mean? It's been with me for such a long time that I'll probably be buried with a bar with some weights.
The pallbearers will love that.
Slowly, Jacobo began to fill up with strongmen. Everywhere you looked, there were big men lifting big things. But when a whole family showed up for a workout, the place took on a strangely domestic, everyday feel. I wondered what the people here did when they weren't lifting building equipment, how they relaxed, and what they did for a living.
And what is your day job?
I work as a sales representative. I sell home appliances, like refrigerators and stuff. Some weekends, nights, I work as a like bouncer, doorman.
Do you enjoy that work?
No, it sucks a lot. It's a horrible job.
The fact is that being a strongman doesn't absolve you from paying the bills. To find out more about the people at Jacobo's day-to-day lives, we met with Ari Gunnarsson, another champion Icelandic strongman who was off to his day job at the local pool.
Come on, you can do it! Faster, faster! Put some energy in it, come on! Now watch this! Butterfly! Your last case, man! I don't know what kind of swimming this was. Not butterfly, not breaststrokes. It was a doggy style.
My butterfly stroke was a humiliating experience, especially with the local kids and Ari's somewhat out-of-shape colleague looking on.
Is being strong useful in everyday situations?
No, I wouldn't say so. I'm always tired. I'm so heavy. It's always pain in the knees, So, yeah, when somebody asks me to help them move, it's very come in handy to pick on me, Hey, you're strong, can you lift this couch for me or something?
Is it a dangerous thing to be involved with in terms of injuries and health problems and things like that?
There's no interest in all sports, but in strongman maybe a little bit more seriously. I tore my bicep tendon last summer. I was flipping tire, 400 kilos.
400 kilo tires?
And I put my finger on it and he said, go. And then I just heard.
In England and in America and all sorts of places, I think we all grew up watching World's Strongest Man, usually on New Year's Day or something like that, and we're all fascinated by it.
It's a different sport. You don't see it very often.
Yeah.
You don't see guys flipping cars, taking Atlant stones. You don't see it.
Do you think it's something to do with maybe like strongmen are the closest thing we have to superheroes, and no one really wants to be kind of human in a way?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe somebody look at this as a Hulk or something. Some kind of superheroes. Yeah, maybe.
Watching Ari sitting in his plastic chair, quietly making sure nobody was dive bombing or heavy petting, I wondered if his strength and physicality was wasted in his day-to-day life, like a superhero working in a supermarket. Our main contact in Reykjavik was a man named Solvi Fanar. As well as being the strongmen's agent, Solvi can also boast of being an actor, model, musician, poet, qualified physician, breakdancer, and the inventor of what he calls the kiss-up. Solvi wanted us to meet Andres Gudmundsson, who along with his wife Lara, is the creator of a military-style obstacle course for children that swept across Scandinavia, with the finals even being shown on national television. And this being Iceland, he's also a former strongman and finger wrestling champion.
Go, are you ready? This one?
Oh, this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck!
Do you think there's something about the Icelandic spirit that makes people want to get out there and, exercise, get big?
We are doers, You have Tarzan inside you. Everybody wants to go out and do something, be strong, and it's something you have. Everybody have. So, yeah, we're just playing with that and try to do that more.
Obviously, in the grand tradition of sporting dads, his son Axel is the national champion.
Ready? Tires, monkey bar. 5.
I could do. I'm ready.
Yeah? Okay, let's do it.
He's the world record.
You have to put your shirt on.
Yes. I bet you didn't think you were going to do this when you woke up this morning.
I've got the wrong shoes on, I'm going to be absolutely useless. I can't even...
We'll support you.
Ready to smile. Okay. Ready? Come on. Every tired. Come on. Yeah. Very good.
Come on.
Faster, faster. One more. Okay. Run.
Move at the time. Try.
Just take your time.
Yeah.
This will be one of the more memorable experiences you'll have in Iceland.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on, guys.
Come on.
Come on, go. Come on, try. There's a Viking in this one, man. Awesome.
Yeah.
Come on. The rope. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. And sit down, please.
Oh my God.
So how did that feel?
It feels beautiful, in a way.
You looked really nice.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Tiring,
you're
but
not as
thank you.
out of shape as you thought.
The best man won. So, obviously we've been at Yakubolt where it's men lifting, building equipment essentially, which is obviously very raw, very hardcore. But this is quite fun, quite technical. Is this the future of strength in Iceland? This kind of obstacle course?
Yeah, I think not only in Iceland, but probably the world.
Yeah.
Something similar to this.
Yeah.
Also, when you have the sandbags for the loading event,
Yeah.
and you have skip rope, you know, so you have to have a lot of different attributes to be able to be successful at this.
Yeah.
And that would do you good in any sport that you would, you know, try out or compete in or whatever.
Sure.
Like you feel. You
Yeah.
felt it, didn't you?
I'm gonna go put my hands in the pool.
Despite my ruined hands and battered ego, I appreciated the positive and inclusive attitude that Andres and his family were presenting. But I can't see it capturing the world's attention quite in the same way as this guy. At 6'9", 190 kilograms, and just 25 years old, Hafþór Bjornsson, also known as Thor, is Iceland's strongest man and the third strongest in the world. Having swapped basketball for strength training just 2 years ago, his physical transformation and rise to the top has been nothing short of phenomenal. So impressive is Thor that he even managed to land a role in the next series of Game of Thrones.
It's 11 AM, Thursday morning, it's -11 and I can't feel my toes. We are off to meet Hafþór, aka Thor, aka Iceland's strongest man, and he has decided to meet us in a kind of strange Ed Hardy-esque LA tattoo parlour.
I wondered what kind of tattoo Hafþór was getting, and surprisingly, it turned out to be a picture of his daughter being protected by a giant dragon.
How's your life changed since you got the title of Iceland's strongest man?
Came pretty quick because I started to train for Strongman in 2009, and in 2011 I came professional Strongman. But this year has been probably my busiest year. I've been twice to China, I've been to Russia, I've been to many places. Also I've been filming, of course, for Game of Thrones, and also for another movie. It's called Zone 261.
I believe that in your Game of Thrones contract, there's a stipulation which says you have to eat every 2 hours.
Yes, exactly. And you can't skip meals. If I skip meals, I just get lighter.
Stöðuna á leiðinni til Helsingi. Hafþór að fara að sýna okkur leyndarmálið sitt. Hvað er það? Hér erum við spínat sem við borða í öll mál.
He called me on the phone and he asked me, how much does a sleeve cost? And I was like 300, 350 at the time. And he walked in the door and I was like, not for you, man. You're like 10 numbers too big, man. It's like his arm is like my leg or something.
So do you tattoo a lot of strongmen then?
Yeah, actually I do.
Yeah.
You know, they suffer.
Yeah.
They feel pain and they never admit it. I was like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Really? And he's sleeping when I'm tattooing him. So
You were asleep?
yeah, often can't say that he feels much pain.
Hafþór was, you know, a really nice guy. a little bit more standoffish than some of the other guys we've met, but he's a pro and he can sit around and spend 4 hours getting his daughter's tattoo done, whereas, you know, a guy like Ari has to go and man the pool. So I think that kind of sets him apart from the rest. He's a star, you know?
But as strong as Thor is, he still hasn't reached every Icelandic strongman's real goal, that of becoming the world's strongest man. A feat that hasn't been matched since the day of John Paul Sigmundsson and Magnus Ver. I am the Viking! But also, a feat that carries with it a real danger. The tragic story of four-time world champion John Paul Sigmundsson still casts a shadow over the sport today. John Paul was the people's favourite, a flamboyantly coiffured Stretch Armstrong doll come to life.
And to be alive if you can't do that.
But at just 32 years old, he died suddenly at Jakobol of what was later said to be a torn aorta. The health issues around the world of strongman are well known. Be it the inhuman strain competitors put their bodies through, the insane diets, and the looming issue of steroid abuse, strongman is generally regarded as a dangerous thing to be involved with. The guys I'd spoken to seemed happy and healthy enough, but I couldn't help but wonder if their lifestyles and the sheer size of the bodies they had to move around in were as much a cause for concern as for celebration. We were setting off with two of Iceland's strongest men, Ari and Stefán Solvi Pettersson, to a very special place just outside of town, John Paul's grave.
Strength has always been very important to Icelandic people, you know. It's written in the old sagas that 1,000 years back, the people who came over here, they're telling stories about them lifting big stones and stuff like that, you know. Only the strongest people survived here.
On a quiet hilltop overlooking the city, peppered with neon crucifixes, it was a surreal and overwhelming place to be, like something out of an Ingmar Bergman film.
This is the place where strong men go to die, I suppose, a kind of muscle graveyard, and I guess it's the tragic end to such an incredible life. I suppose he was he a real idol to you two growing up?
I would definitely say he's the reason why I do strongman today.
Yeah?
It's just so cool, you know. When we were a little kid, he was the guy from small Iceland, and he traveled the world, and he beat all the big guys, you know, and that was inspiring to us.
How much do you know about his death?
Nothing. I was 7 years old when he died, so I know nothing.
But do you know how it happened? It was a heart attack, wasn't it?
That's what they say, heart attack in the gym, only 32 years old.
But some people would say that being so big and eating so much food and putting it through so much stuff does put a strain on your heart. Do you guys ever worry about anything like that happening to you?
No. It's probably also dangerous to cross the street. You could get hit by a car, but that's just how it is.
You see things differently when you have kids. So before that I was like, no, not that much thinking about it.
It's easy to play this steroid card and to say people get success because of that. You know, in the end of the day, you always have to work very, very hard. I always believe that the strongest man in the world is the man who lives his life to be the world's strongest man, you know.
Guð blessi þig, þú blóm fékkst, órætt, og bjart nafn þitt og vertu eilíf ætíð sæll, við aldrei gleymum þér.
Whatever the risks, it's hard not to be in awe of the lives that guys like Ari, Stefan, Paul and Hafthor lead. On one level, they're superhuman, doing the things that most of us would deem utterly impossible. Nordic gods living amongst the mortals. But on the other, they're almost like ballerinas, strangely vulnerable specimens of perfect physicality whose careers could be over in a second. Because of this, they seem to tread carefully through life, in an effort to preserve the magnificent bodies they've created. But what separates the Icelandic strongmen from the rest of the world's is the understanding of the story of a country where just living meant fighting against the odds, the story of a little black rock that took on the world and won, the story of Iceland, the nest of giants.